Welcome, everybody. This is State of Hoops podcast co-host Todd Schlekeway, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host Nate Malchow, and we are just thrilled to be here with you all for the debut episode of the State of Hoops, a South Dakota Basketball Podcast. Chow, how you doing?
Doing good, Schleck. Happy to be here. Let's get this started, and we're happy to bring a love and passion of South Dakota basketball in a podcast format, and we've been looking forward to this for a long time. So excited to be on the train.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing this for many years, and it finally came to fruition. So we're very excited. Before we dive into today's episode, I'd like to acknowledge we have 5 sponsoring companies and organizations for season 1 of the State of Hoops podcast. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame, Tiefenthaler Homes by Hague Real Estate, Park Bench Apparel, Charles Schwab, the Sioux Falls branch, run by Lonnie Struckman and Zach Hansen as financial consultants, and then Insight. Those 5 companies and organizations have stepped up to sponsor the podcast, and we're so grateful for their support. And we're excited to tell their stories along with basketball stories throughout the seasons. Chow, our friendship, really, if you look back, we've known each other since 4th grade. I think we met.
88?
Yep.
89? Yep.
I'll never forget it. We were at a Northern State Wolves Buddies Clinic on a Sunday afternoon at the Barnett Center. I think the Barnett Center was in year 1 or 2. It would just open. Of course, I grew up in Mobridge, so we were in Aberdeen all the time. My parents went to NSU. My dad played basketball at NSU. And of course, Nate is from Aberdeen. And so that's where we met. And then, of course, talk a little bit about Nate of our NSU basketball camp days.
Well, I think when people get to our age now, Schleck, in our late 40s here too, some of the best memories that you have are reminiscing about those camp days. And this was basketball camp at its traditional core back in the late 80s. It wasn't a 2-day camp, a day camp. This was a Sunday night, drop you off at Jurdy Hall in Aberdeen, go all the way Sunday to Friday. A result of that is that you make lifelong friends. You meet people from all over in that area of the state. That was the place to be. The Northern State Future Stars camp, run by Bob Olson and Terry Small at that time, who was my high school coach. But the special part, and this is a byproduct of that, is that you create those friendships. And I still run into guys that I went to the Northern State Future Stars camp with in the late 80s. I mean, we can talk about, we had so much fun and doing station work in the morning. Then you did contests in the afternoon. Then you had league play at night. And then usually that was the time of the NBA finals. So you'd go and you'd watch. I remember specifically sitting in Jurdy Hall watching the Pistons take on the Lakers, or the Pistons take on the Trailblazers. That was the era of the bad boys of Detroit at that time. And then you'd watch the game. So it was all basketball pretty much 24/7 during that week. And a lot of friendships born out of that. But I specifically remember, Schleck, I've always been a post player and always been tall. Well, walking into that camp, and here comes a guy from Mobridge, which was you, Schleck. We're 4th graders at the time, and you were tall, but you could shoot it as well too. And just kind of gained a new competitor right there in terms of going to camps with and being in the contests and playing and doing all that. But quickly became buddies and friends at that age, and the rest is history.
And you mentioned it, Chow, but the stations at those old NSU Future Stars camps, they were run by a who's who of coaches in the state. Like Hall of Fame coaches were running stations. And of course, we're 4th, 5th graders. We don't know anything better, but talk a little bit, just real briefly, about some of the names who were involved with those camps back in the day.
Oh my gosh. So for those not familiar with this, what they used to do at the Northern State camps is they would put you in a group of 10 to 12 kids. And you would have fundamental stations in the morning. Being kids, being 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th graders, the fundamental part of the game was emphasized big time at that camp. And you would have 10 to 12 kids, you'd have a 10-minute station, and then they blow the whistle and you'd rotate. to a different one. Of course, being as young as we were, we wanted to get to contests and we wanted to get to league play and do all that. But we all know that the fundamental base is the backbone to anything when you're trying to become a good player and be a part of a good team and doing that. But some of the of those coaches, I remember the shooting clinic was always led by Jim Trent, who was at Northwestern at the time, Sioux Falls, Washington coach and a colleague through the years. Mark Murphy, legendary post coach, assistant coach for Aberdeen Central, always led the post drills. So we were getting taught, the Jack Sigma reverse pivot move and the double drop step and the power drop step and just different types of post moves. And you could be a 5-foot guard as a fourth grader and you're getting taught post moves. And just like, being a post, we had to go to the ball handling station and do that. And Rich Dix, the longtime coach at Aberdeen Roncalli, ran that. Chuck Welke was a part of those camps, legendary coach from Warner. It was a who's who of Northeast South Dakota basketball. Bob Olson ran the camp, and then you'd go into Dakota Hall for a gym, and there's Tim Miles running the league that night in that gym. We all know Tim Miles from Doland. Went on to coach the Nebraska Cornhuskers and currently coaching out in Division I out in California right now. So a who's who, and we were active kids, but the reward was listening and learning from some of these legends.
Yeah, and I remember like it was yesterday, Derek Roby handled one of the stations. It's amazing to see he's still going, after all these years. And last quick story before we move on, the NSU Future Stars Camp, the one-on-one competition, 2 or 3 years. They always had contests in the afternoon, stations in the morning, contests in the afternoon. My rival back in those days for the one-on-one champ was none other than Josh Heupel, who we all know now is an SEC head football coach at Tennessee. So certainly so many fond memories from those days. And that is really where, Chow, our friendship centered around basketball was really forged. So now I want to talk about fast forward to our high school years. And instead of being rivals in the Y circuit days, we became teammates on the AAU stage and got to experience some really incredible times. Talk a little bit about our 2 years we played AAU ball in the summer, which again, mid-90s, it's a lot different than it is now, right? So talk a little bit about our experiences having that opportunity.
Yeah, so much different, Schleck, now than it was back in the mid '90s. There just wasn't as much of it, truly. Even back in the mid '90s when we were going through high school, your favorite sport was going to be the one that you're in season. But we had a group of guys that were interested in playing a little bit in the summer. Uh, I just remember getting a call from your dad, from Jim Schlekeway, asking if I would be interested in being a part of a Team South Dakota that was going to be formed in the summer of 1994. And it was a group of people from Sioux Falls that were organizing, working with your dad. And we took a group of people from the eastern side of the state, 8, 9 of us, and we formed that together. And the Sioux Falls crew was led by Fred Tibbetts and Bob White, forming that team, and Dave Dummermuth and a group of Roosevelt guys, which are synonymous with South Dakota basketball, and John Severson, Nate Tibbetts, and Nate White. So the two of us, along with Josh Thorpe from Hecla, and I'm probably missing some people here, Schleck. I mean, there was Chris Jansen from Emory, Shannon Poppinga from Harrisburg at that time.
Jeremy Cordera from Del
Yep.
Rapids.
Yep, Jeremy from Del Rapids, and we put a team together, and we ended up traveling on the AAU circuit. So we became teammates, and that was fun because all of our families went with too, and we created friendships that last to this day. And we still talk about that 30 years later when we run in to this crew, and we have that bond of being able to share basketball together for 2 summers and travel to. The state tournament was a classic here because we always played that in Irene in the middle of June, and hot weather and no air conditioning. That's the way it was, and we had to play in a state tournament here to qualify for a national tournament, and ended up playing 2 summers in the national tournament in July of 1994 and July 1995 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A special crew. great camaraderie, and I think that showed with the success that we had with that team, to be able to play together and to create some great memories and represent South Dakota. That was a lot of fun. Schleck, I set a lot of screens for you, and I set a lot of screens for the shooters. That was my job. Going and rebound. We had enough guys that could shoot the basketball and score. So I don't know. I tried to set as many screens as I could for you guys to get you open and get you scoring.
Yeah, I think when I look back at that time period, probably those 2 summers, maybe my most favorite time as a basketball player, and I played at many different levels. The games were played in Lawrence Joel Coliseum, which is still Wake Forest University's home arena, and I remember I saved the programs of all the teams and rosters who were in that national AAU tournament, the 2 years we went, and looking back on it now, Nate, it's amazing. That was littered with future NBA players. And of course, we didn't know half of them at the time because we're 16, 17 years old, but it was quite remarkable the experience we got. Um, and of course, now it's much more commonplace with the AAU circuit, the way it's structured today.
That was the place, though.
It was.
That was the destination, was the national AAU tournament. And the proof is in the players that were in that. And going back and looking at some of the teams that we played, I mean, whether we played against or not in the tournament, you're watching Jermaine O'Neal, who was drafted right out of high school in the class of 96. Longtime player in the NBA, Ron Mercer, who played at Kentucky, long time in the NBA. Actually, Team South Dakota played against them. Tractor Trailer, who played for Michigan, was a big name at that time. Just a lot of talent, and that was eye opening for a group of South Dakota kids to go down there. We were competitive, and I believe in '94 we had a better tournament than '95. But I think what place did that team take, Schleck, in '94?
In 94, we were 8th nationally.
Yes.
We made it to the quarterfinals, got beat, but what an experience. It was set up like an NCAA tournament bracket is today. There was that many
Mhm.
teams.
Mhm.
And, I can remember, we lost to Ron Mercer's team, the Tennessee Travelers, in the round of 8. John Severson, who many fans, you mentioned him earlier, are gonna know that name. He played head to head with Ron Mercer, who, of course, the very next year goes to Kentucky and national championship as a true freshman, and then again goes on to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. So what memories those were, and it just goes to show you that South Dakota, Chow, you know this, doesn't have to take a backseat to anyone when it comes to basketball.
No question. Men's, women's basketball, boys, girls basketball. We have a special thing in this state. And that's a part of the podcast, is to celebrate this special sport that we have in South Dakota. And we walked away and we came back to Sioux Falls, and we came back just confident, knowing that, we saw some of the best in the nation, but we play right with those guys. We might not win all the games, but we can play right with them. And I think I came back with a lot of respect for the coaches that we have here in South Dakota, because fundamentally this team was prepared to play with anybody. And again, I mean, you look at the roots of this podcast, and appreciation for South Dakota hoops, and appreciation for the players, the coaches, the fans, everybody. And we can go round and round, but so many things encompass that, and forge, the great relationships that we have in this state with this sport.
Yeah, and then one last thing to talk about how basketball has been our bond as friends. From 3rd grade to 8th grade, you and I coached our boys in a travel ball, and, what memories we made. And I know you've said, and you're a 3-time state AA championship winning coach, Nate, but for me to get to coach our boys with you by my side, I'll always cherish those moments. And of course, that's over now for us because our boys, my oldest son and your twin boys, are in high school. But any thoughts on that, closing this out?
What a great memory. Growing up with basketball and then being able to have that experience with your own kids, coaching with one of my best friends and guy that I've gone through the basketball journey with, and just being able to live that with our kids, but also most importantly, a bunch of great kids and great families, and enjoy that experience that we had. Also, just being able to help control that experience, because we know that, starting basketball and playing at the youth level and trying to make that as positive experience as you can for those kids is very important. So great memories, and kind of coming full circle with that.
Again, you're listening to the State of Hoops podcast, and I want to take this time to acknowledge several of our sponsors. Park Bench Apparel. Looking for high quality custom gear? Look no further than Park Bench Apparel, your South Dakota owned print shop. Park Bench Apparel specializes in screen printing, embroidery, laser and UV printing, plus unique giftware for every occasion. Outfitting your company or team? We've got you covered with fully customizable team stores and corporate apparel. You can also find Park Bench Apparel at the South Dakota High School Activities Association state events, and you can follow them and find them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Park Bench Apparel, wear an adventure. Another sponsor, Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors. For over 30 years, Pat and Pam Tiefenthaler of Tiefenthaler Real Estate with Hague Realtors have been trusted names in and around the Sioux Falls community. Building relationships that last, they're humbled and honored to serve buyers and sellers with care and expertise. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or navigating a move because life happens, Pat and Pam will walk beside you, guiding you every step of the way. Call Pat or Pam at 605-10550 or find them online at tiefteam.hague.com today. Okay, I want to transition now, Chow. You're a busy man. We have to schedule these podcast recordings out in advance. You're a activities director at one of the state's largest high schools, Washington High. Talk a little bit about what life is like at the start of a school year for activities. Basketball season at the high school level is still a ways away, but we all know that's going to be here before we know it. How are things going day to day for you? Walk us through that.
Fall is an exciting time of the year for us in the education world. The new year starts the middle of August, late part of August, when you start getting your new students back in the building, or current students, new students. Everybody is back, and it's an exciting time of the year. You have life in the school buildings with a lot of great kids and staff and people who are there ready to work with kids and educate them. I happen to be in the activities part of the education world, where as the AD, I oversee all the athletics and fine arts at Washington High School, and fall is certainly probably our busiest time of the year. I mean, we have multiple athletic and fine arts groups that are going right now that are right in the middle of their season. And while it's a busy time, it's a fun time. The fun part is just seeing the opportunity that's provided these kids and being able to showcase the hard work that they've been putting in, whether it's over the summertime and working on their craft, and now we're in seasons and it's go time. But very busy time in the schools, but a very fun time, a very exciting time when you get your fall activities rolling and being able to get out and compete in a variety of activities. So a lot of good stuff going on in our schools across the state, and we know that the schools are really a heartbeat of the community, and whether it's a small town, a big town, what schools bring to the community and working with kids and preparing kids for their future endeavors is so important. So shout out to all the teachers, all the coaches, all the admins who are getting that going and working with kids, because they have a true passion for it, and they want to be there to help kids along and achieve their goals. So shout out to everybody as we start the year.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Chow. I'm the son of two teachers. My dad was a longtime coach. My dad was known for his 43 plus years coaching high school basketball, but almost every one of those years, Nate, he also was assistant football coach in the fall. and he coached spring and track in the spring. So, I know, and we know how much is invested by coaches and educators in the state. We want to pay homage to that, by the stories we tell, because it's tremendous sacrifice, but you don't go unnoticed, your contributions and roles. So thank you. Okay, now we want to kind of set the stage here for the segments that we're going to have on the podcast. This is our debut episode. Our goal for those of you listening is we want to engage the communities, the fans, the athletes, the players, the coaches, the media personalities around the state. And so we're going to have different segments as we get into this season. And the first segment we're going to talk about is Chalk Talk.
Chalk Talk.
Just so the listeners know, our goals with this segment is we're going to kind of share some strategies. Nate's been on the sidelines and he's won at the highest levels. As we get into the season, kind of, end of game philosophies, X's and O's strategies. For our listeners, you can engage with us on this topic through our email address, stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com, or on X and Instagram. What are your kind of overall thoughts, Nate, on Chalk Talk, kind of what you want to get into as the season progresses here?
Well, I think once we get in the season, we can help the fans and the spectators understand maybe what's going through the mind of not only an athlete but a coach as you're preparing for games, as you're in games, as you're at end of games, because everything has a unique perspective to it in the whole process of getting out and competing. So that's my hope. I mean, I'm not gonna pull up an eraser board and drop game-winning plays or anything like that. If anybody wants some good out-of-bounds plays, I can help out. I can help out with those because I think they still work. But really, I think it's just understanding the mindset. I think helping the listeners and the people supporting the cast, and what's going on. We got 2 minutes left. We're in a close game. We got time and score situations. What is going through the coach's mind and what is going through the athlete's mind and what are they leaning on, to get through really that crunch time of the game. So I think we can lend a unique perspective to that, just knowing what that is like and being around many coaches and many athletes and everything too. So looking forward to that part and looking at different games and just kind of getting an insider's perspective on what's going on.
Well said. That's going to be a fun segment. So you're going to want to stay tuned to that as we get into the basketball season here. All right. The next segment we want our listeners to get acquainted with is a segment we're going to call Give and Go.
Give and Go.
Now, when it's just Nate and I conversing on the podcast, this may be a hot topic within South Dakota basketball circles or basketball at large. But when we have guests, and we'll have guests quite frequently on the podcast, this could be a rapid fire questions, lightning round type question segment. So we're going to have a lot of fun with the Give and Go segment. And we wanted to introduce that to all of you. It's your chance, Nate, to be game show host for a segment.
Well, and again, Schlek, this is where the interaction with those who are subscribing to the podcast and listening, get those questions in. You got some questions. Obviously, our goal is to keep this on the positive, on the up and up, to celebrate basketball, to showcase all the wonderful things that are going on with that. So that is what the tone will be. But we're always up for questions that the viewer has, and to help explain some things the best that we can based on our experiences.
And again, you're listening to the State of Hoops podcast. I want to acknowledge several more sponsors. Charles Schwab, looking for trusted financial guidance close to home. Visit Schwab's Sioux Falls, South Dakota branch, your local investment firm. Led by Lonnie Struckman and Zach Hansen, financial consultants with over 25 years of combined experience. Their team is here to help you reach your financial goals. Whether you're planning, investing, or just have questions, Lonnie, Zach, and their team put clients first every time. You can reach them by phone at 888-281-4844. Go to Schwab's website and search Schwab Sioux Falls to book your appointment today. Charles Schwab, own your tomorrow. And I'd also like to acknowledge the South Dakota High School Basketball Hall of Fame. If you love South Dakota hoops, discover the legacy at the South Dakota Basketball Hall of Fame, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving our state's rich basketball history for generations to come. Visit their incredible exhibits at the Sanford Pentagon in Sioux Falls and explore stories, milestones, and legends online at sdbbhof.com. From iconic players and coaches to unforgettable teams, this is South Dakota basketball. And again, that website's newly rebranded. It's quite remarkable. Check it out at sdbbhof.com. And that's a good segue, Nate, to talk about another segment that we're going to have, which is actually going to be specifically branded episodes throughout season 1. Episodes we're going to call Legend Series episodes. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm very excited for this feature and just being able to have guests on our show who've had significant impacts on the history of South Dakota basketball. Schlek, we've been working on a few of them right now. We'll be ready to unveil some guests here in the upcoming episodes, but that's going to be a lot of fun. Getting to know these legends a little bit better. What's their story? What made them successful? How have they used basketball to help them be successful in life? And the lessons that they've learned and the stories that they can tell. Looking forward to that. And we've been lucky enough, Schlek and I, to build a lot of positive relationships with those in the basketball community. So we're looking forward to getting those guests on and talking some hoops and getting some stories, and as only South Dakota can provide. So that is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, how cool is it going to be to interview not only legends, but Nate, some of your role models and my role models growing up? I'm just going to be an amazing opportunity. And that's a good segue to talk about our next segment. Our next segment called Bleacher Preachers.
Bleacher Preachers!
You're going to love this segment. Our goal with the Bleacher Preachers segment is fan engagement. So we want you, again, to email us whatever we're talking about in this segment, your comments, questions. You can email us at stateofhoopspodcast@gmail.com. And you can also DM us on our State of Hoops podcast X account and Instagram. But the first Bleacher Preachers question that we want to engage the community with here is, who do you want to see us interview? Which South Dakota men and women, girls and boys basketball legends do you want us to interview for season 1? Please share your thoughts on that as part of our Bleacher feature, and we will take care of that. That's going to be a fun one.
Well, I think with some of the guests that we already have lined up and ready to go, could finalize some things with that. But I think the viewers here and those listening to the cast are going to be excited to hear the stories and to hear from the legends themselves on their experiences in South Dakota basketball.
Okay, I want to acknowledge our sponsor, Insight. They're the folks who helped us with the visual assets to bring this podcast to life. And I can tell you, they don't just make things look good. They dive in, ask the right questions, and come back with great ideas that actually work. Whether it's branding, campaigns, or creative strategy, Insight has a way of helping businesses stand out and connect with people in meaningful ways. If you're looking for a partner and make an impact on your business, check them out at insightmarketingdesign.com today. All right. This leads us to our last segment that we want to kind of preview for the listeners, Chow. And that's a segment we're calling Show Out, Shout Out.
Show out, shout out.
Yeah, and this is an opportunity to recognize positive and significant contributions to South Dakota basketball. Past, present, future. Gives us some commentary and content to visit a little bit about, to give somebody their flowers, so to say, quote unquote. for their contributions for South Dakota basketball. Maybe it's in a game, in a season, with a legacy, players, coaches, fans, communities. You can go around the whole spectrum with that, but this will be a fun segment just to be able to recognize those positive contributions.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And again, we want you to hear, once the season starts, who should be getting a shout out recognition from Nate and I. But I'm going to start us off in our debut episode, and I'm going to give a shout out to Frank Cutler. He retired over the summer, a longtime coach at Platt for the Black Panthers. And I have a soft spot for coaches like Frank because, similar to my dad's story, they coached for a long time. Their tenure is remarkable. And they also coached in the same community for a long time. And I believe I read an article by Ryan Deal when he retired with 546 wins, which puts him in that coveted top 10 wins all time list. And anytime you're over that 500 mark, it's quite a achievement. And so Frank Cutler gets his flowers on the debut episode of the State of Hoops podcast.
And I'll second that. Coach Cutler is a great coach. He's a great person. I had an opportunity to get to know him just through the coaching ranks and also in the administrative ranks, and consider Coach Cutler a friend. The impact that he has made in Platt and that community, and just having that success over a period of time and commitment to that school and that community is amazing. So shout out to Coach Cutler. See him a little bit in Sioux Falls and continue to tell some good stories with him. So my shout out goes again, and I talked about this earlier, to all the teachers and the coaches and the admins who make things happen for kids and give opportunities to that. I'll get more specific with people as we go, but I think it's a good time here in the first podcast to give that shout out. You are appreciated, and the things that you do each and every day, working within your communities and working with your kids, is magical. The relationships that you build to help kids reach goals and to believe in themselves. Shout out to all the teachers, coaches, admins in our education communities, because that is important, and you show up to do positive things. So that's my first one, Schlek. We'll get more specific as the casts go.
Well, that's a good way to wrap up our debut episode, Nate. Again, I want to thank the sponsors of season 1 of State of Hoops. Just a reminder, how do you find us? You can find us on our official YouTube channel, State of Hoops YouTube channel, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia Podcasts, and Amazon Music Podcasts. Again, we are really looking for fan engagement, community engagement with this podcast. So please do follow us on X and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, this is State of Hoops podcast co-host Todd Schlekeway, along with fellow co-host Nate Malchow. Have a great evening.